Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Joey Song Podcast. Before we get into the podcast, we're going to have a lot of new listeners to this one because of the subject matter. And for you regular listeners, this is going to be a little bit of a different format. So my guests today are a couple of fellows that have been my friends for over 30 years. One is Justin Currie, lead singer, songwriter, and bon vivant, try to throw a little French in every time, of Amitri. And Bobby Tanzilo, senior writer for onmilwaukee.com. The three of us, Justin and Bobby, have been friends for 40 plus years, and I have been friends with the two of them for 30 plus years. And we have had lots of stories and adventures together. And with the Amitri guys coming over to the States in a couple weeks for their U.S. tour, thought it was a good opportunity for the three of us to get together and chat for a while about the history of Amitri, our friendship, some of the stories together, and just other stuff. So it was just a real chance for us to do it. Now, a bit of warning, I am not the best editor, and we did have some technical difficulties, a couple moments in here, so it's going to sound a little choppy, but I don't have the technical expertise to do the smooth in and out stuff. So bear with us. There's a ton of great stories. Justin talks about Amitri starting their tour of the U.S. back in '86 when they slept on floors, including Bobby's parents' floor. Talks a little bit about success then coming and the change of direction and sound and how that came about, some of his favorite songs from the Del's catalog, and just some stuff about fame and fortune and touring. So I'm going to guess there'll be a bunch of Amitri fans that are going to be listening to this that will enjoy some of those stories, as well as some Joey Song fans who don't necessarily know the whole Amitri story. I encourage you to listen. It's about an hour's worth of great conversation. Some very fun stuff comes up. So, to all of the Amitri fans listening for the first time, welcome. And please take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about Joey Song, a charity that Justin has supported in numerous ways in the past. For all of you Joey Song fans, please go to Amitri on your favorite streaming platform and listen and learn and Justin's solo stuff. So, stick around, the Joey Song Podcast with my guests, Bobby Tanzilo and Justin Currie. Welcome to the official podcast of Joey Song. You know, at Joey Song, we have one mission: raise as much money as we can so that research into finding treatments and cures for epilepsy can get the funding it needs. We would love your support. If you can subscribe and leave a review of this podcast, it will help more than you could ever know. If you have a couple extra mouse clicks left in you, go to YouTube and our YouTube channel, Joey Song, and subscribe. There, in less than 2 minutes with a couple of mouse clicks, you will have made it easier for others to find us and help spread the word. Now, if you want to do a bit more, head over to joeysong.org, consider buying a show ticket or some merch, or even making a donation. Thanks. You know, we'll beat this disease, and together we'll have some fun doing it as well. Join us. All right, let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Joey Song Podcast. Today we have a very, very special one, or at least it's special to me, and gosh darn it, that's all that really matters. I am joined today by a couple friends that have been friends for nary 3 decades, and we are joined together by lots of things, but one of those things is music. My two guests today are Justin Currie, lead singer, songwriter, and all-around good egg from the band Amitri. And the other person, just as good an egg, is my friend Bobby Tanzilo. What are you a senior writer? Is that what you are, Bobby?
Hang on a second to you. I'm a better egg than Bobby. If you're gonna egg us,
okay. Yeah, I knew you'd bring that up.
I admit that's true.
We will tell that story before this is all done too, I'm sure. Senior editor for onmilwaukee.com and the maestro behind Urban I can't ever say it. Spelunking? Is that how you say it?
Spelunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got it right. So my tongue doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. And we are here today to celebrate a lifetime of friendship and interesting stories, all wrapped around Amitri and Justin and his music, which has brought the three of us together many, many times for shenanigans and chicanery. And I just thought the Dells are about to come back over for another tour of the U.S. And I had seen online that Bobby and Justin were talking, and I realized they were too professional to actually talk about their relationship. So I thought I would take us to that level and really talk about how they got together and all of those other things. So before I dig in, Bobby, Justin, any comments?
No.
Good.
I reserve the right to refuse to answer certain questions, but I don't know what they are yet. So we'll find out as we go along.
Thank God for editing. Yes.
Yeah, but as your lawyer, Bobby, I advise making that statement.
Thank God. This podcast has already made me feel like I'm back in the corporate world. So this is great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems better than that otter thing.
Yeah. That'll be fun for the listeners. All right. So I wanted to start out, Justin, and this is where you can edit as you see fit as we talk about, because shocking as it may seem, not everybody that's listening to the Joey Song podcast may know the Dells' origin story. Do you want to kind of take us back to you and Ian and starting it off and how you guys got to where you were before Bobby came into your life?
Yeah. I mean, it started, I think, 78, 79, I formed a band at school. We were kind of the only guys at school that were into punk and post-punk because we were a bit young for punk. And those were the days when you turned on the John Peel show and there were like 10 amazing records coming out every week by, Joy Division, The Fall and The Cramps, and there's just so much stuff coming out, the Feelies. So I formed a band at school. And then the two guitar players, because I always wanted a two-guitar band like the Beatles and television. So the two guitar players went off to university and left me and the drummer Paul in the lurch. So we advertised for musicians and met all these assholes that wanted to be in these really polished, trendy, white soul sort of outfits. They all wanted to be Brian Ferry or Grace Jones or Japan. So yeah, we were about to give up, and then Ian walked in, and he just finished working on a farm for 6 months, and he was completely different from everybody. So that was 1982. So even though the name existed before that, Amitri started kind of more seriously in 1982. But there was a band called Amitri that I was in that were gigging in 1980. And then, we just kind of, the usual story, just an indie pop band, lucked across a major record deal in our late teens, early 20s. That was a colossal failure. Toured the US, all kind of off our own backs, and with the generosity of fans that had written to us, including Bobby. And that tour of the US in '86 completely changed our lives. It was like those one of those backpacking tours or one of those formative experiences that kids have before college, or in one summer when they're doing their first job or something. So that changes us people. It changed the way we made music, changed the way we wrote songs. So America made us, basically, and those fans that wrote to us and put on gigs for us and put us up in their parents' houses, they made us. And so even though I do bitch and moan about America like any grumpy rock star does, I always have to make a point of saying that I really love America because I love Americans. Because though everybody that looked after us in '86, not only did they make our careers, but they were just incredibly generous, and most of them have stayed friends to this day. So, and then after that we had a hit, and it was the usual story.
Yeah. Did you feel like you talked about America changing your lives? It invigorated you in some way? It was like, okay, this can really be a thing, or what was it?
Well, it was sort of plugging into all those influences that you're not even aware are so pervasive in your soul. So like every street sign, every sign you would see on the interstate, it was like, that's a song, that's a song, that's in a song. I mean, you're going to remember that, movies and music,
Yeah.
America is like it is the shining city on the hill for people who are born in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. It's like it's freedom and it's the best of pop culture and all that sort of stuff. And the other thing that massive influences was we would go to college radio stations and they'd be playing an extraordinarily eclectic mix of music. So they'd be playing quite mainstream American stuff, but they'd play country stuff and they'd play, obscure British indie music. And we suddenly realized, oh, right, you don't have to just be in one little pigeonhole or one little ghetto. There's nothing wrong with admitting you like Tom Petty as well as you like early Scritti Politti or something, or that you like, okay, we like Crass and we like the Cramps, but we also like Blondie and we like Fleetwood Mac, so it just opened us up to not worrying about being cool and tasteful, and that was that. We would never have been commercially successful without that, because we would have stayed in that ghetto and gone nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit about that transition. But so at this point, Bobby, the first Amitri record has come out. You are scanning the record shops and you come across it. What happens next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So right, did you hear my question?
Can you reposit your question to me?
Yes, Justin had just finished telling us about the coming over to America, and it invigorated creativity and lust for music and lots of other things. And he had mentioned the generosity of folks letting you sleep on floors and booking gigs. And that's where I said, and so here you are, Bobby, combing the record stores of Milwaukee. And
so I first heard about Del Amitri via a magazine that came with a 10-inch record called Debut, and it had a version of The Difference Is, which is a song that was on the B-side of the band's first single, but this was a different a later recording of it. And I loved it so much that when the album appeared, I bought that. And on the back, in little print, which dorks like me would only read, it said that you could write to the band or get a lyric poster or something writing to this address. So I wrote to the address, and I heard back from the band's manager, Barbara Shores, as did many other people, it turns out, in the United States and probably abroad. And I started writing back and forth with Barbara, who was sort of, I don't know how she was managing to make a living, manage a band, and seemingly write letters to dozens of fans all at the same time, but apparently she did. And at a certain point, I think she decided to kind of farm out some of the letter writing work to the band, because she connected me to Justin. And we started writing back and forth. And then came the request.
This is pre-internet days, right? So these are letters.
This is handwritten. This was Barbara trying to read my chicken scratch, which has gotten no better in the years since. And then came the request to, that these guys were going to come to the United States, and could we help set them up with a show in Milwaukee? And so I said yes. I presumably asked my parents, because I still lived at home. We lived in a small apartment above my grandparents, in the house my mom grew up in and my grandfather grew up in. And so they must have said yes. I don't know why. And it happened to be like 2 weeks before my brother's wedding. So there was that complication. But anyway, they said yeah, because my parents are my parents, and
yes, they are.
Bless them. And they know the birthdays of all your children.
They do. They do.
I don't know how that works, but anyway, so then we set this up, and I managed to book them 2 gigs in clubs, and I got them in a record store in-store at Atomic Records, which was the best record store in town. And I got them 2 radio spots on WMSE, which is also still going. And then we drove around town a bunch and they busked outside of Irish Fest by the lakefront, outside a record store on North Avenue on the east side, and things like that. And we managed to somehow squeeze pretty much everyone into the apartment on floors, couches, whatever.
I don't think anybody was on a floor.
No, well, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. But a couple of people did stay on the east side. A
Yeah.
friend of mine was willing to put up. The drummer Paul and Lynn Harvey,
Yeah.
Ian's sister, stayed there. So that was two people we didn't have to like find a space for. But then my parents had like a big cookout and fed everybody,
Of course they did.
and it was great. I mean, we had a great time. It didn't seem like it was taxing to anyone, although I know that Barbara was going through some stuff at that point, and I don't know how the band hid it, but I think we were sort of on the way back to New York. So we were in the second sort of half of that tour, which was, I mean, Justin can speak to this, but I came to learn later how stressful it was for all of them, and how they managed to be so like agreeable and friendly and chatty with everybody. Seems amazing to me now.
Yeah,
in
we
retrospect.
were just grateful to be talking to people that weren't us, and we were grateful to be given free food, because we didn't have any food on the road because we didn't have any money. So we would
Oh yeah.
we would get $10, and somebody would go and buy an all-you-can-eat salad plate, and then we would just take that same plate back to the salad bar 10 times to feed us all, or 8 times to feed us all. And that was basically how we lived. It was bonkers. So we were so grateful when we arrived in these towns, and fans' parents had a barbecue. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I remember at the end, Barbara tried to leave my parents money,
Right.
which my
nice.
mom would refuse to take. And
Yeah.
so then she tried to roll it up in the toilet paper in the bathroom. She like was unraveling the roll of toilet paper and sticking like $10 bills in it and re-rolling it up. but
there's a joke there somewhere. I just can't think of what it is.
Yeah, nobody fell for that though, and I don't think in the end my parents let Barbara give us any money, because I mean we knew that you guys were trying to get back, and you made a little. I mean, I think we had a guarantee for sure.
Yeah, we did. Milwaukee was the worst one was LA, because we had a sort of 4-day drive to. I think we went to Iowa.
Yeah, you came here from Iowa.
Yeah. I can't remember anything about Iowa, but we had no food on that trip. I mean, because we only had enough money for enough gas to get us to Iowa. So actually, the Milwaukee, were there 2 or 3 gigs we did in Milwaukee, Bobby?
Two. There were two. Yeah, two.
So and you're right. One of them had a guarantee, so that was like real money. So that meant we could eat on the next leg.
Yeah, the first show was at a place called Cafe Voltaire, which later became the Odd Rock Cafe, and we very generously offered our support to open for you.
Yeah.
And we got another band called the Squares to also generously open for you, which of course I jest because both of us really wanted to do that. And Kevin McDermott also played. Yeah. And I think we just did the door there. And then everybody just let you guys, of course, take the door, because we're used to not getting paid for anything anyway. That's how the music business works here. Yeah. And so I think you guys did okay that night too, because we knew everybody who was there, so we just sort of spread the word. Yeah. And I think people probably donated a little extra and stuff too. And that was a really fun gig. That was my perhaps first and only onstage performance with Amitri on the tambourine.
Oh, excellent.
On Brown Eyed Girl, I believe. And then the next show was good in that there was a guarantee. I got Tony Seelig, the late Tony Seelig, to guarantee, I don't know, $200 or something. I don't remember exactly. And you guys opened for De Kreutzen, which is not exactly a musical match made in heaven, but I still talk to them these days, and they were very happy about it, and they loved you guys, and they have fond memories of that show. But that was a show where almost nobody I knew was there, because the Smiths played up the street that night on the Queen is Dead tour.
Wow.
And so everybody was at that.
Right.
Well, except Morrissey wasn't at that. He didn't show up for that.
No, right. He couldn't be bothered. But I mean, there was a crowd at the Delamitri at the De Croixson show, but it wasn't a Delamitri crowd.
Was there not
You know.
somebody that was shot at the back of that show? And I'm sure
Well, when
when
we were sitting in the parking lot, I remember waiting to get paid because we had to wait till the end of the night
yeah.
for him to deal with the money. And I was telling you that just like I don't know if it was definitely in that week before that somebody had been shot in that parking lot. But
Well,
it was
that
Jeez.
just shows you how unreliable memory is, because even like a couple of years after that show, I was telling people that when we tried to get the gear out of the stage door at the back, there was police tape everywhere, and there was like one of those shapes they draw around bodies. So
oh no,
I
that's
must have
that
just I must have been so away in this American fantasy that when you
you
told me
you were.
that, I then etched that into my memory and believed it was true. Isn't that that's extraordinary?
You were, yeah. I remember telling you guys about it while we were waiting, but it did not happen that
Well,
night.
it just shows
And
you how you self mythologize without really
yeah,
knowing it. Because I would have, if you told me, yeah, somebody was shot and there was the outline of the body, I would have said, yeah, I remember that. Isn't that weird?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other reason that story is not true is because you used all of De Kreutzen's gear except
Yeah.
for your.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
I
So
mean,
we
you
wouldn't
had
have
your
been
you
pushing
had
amps out the back door. That's right. Yeah.
no, you would have had no amps or drums. You'd have just had you brought your bass,
That's mad.
and then we had loaner guitars. We had
Yeah.
a because I got Brian a Rickenbacker 360 because I knew he played a Rickenbacker.
Yeah.
So it's really painful for me to say Rickenbacker because I just learned it is pronounced Rickenbacker after about 55 years of saying Rickenbacker. So
Oh, who cares?
it's very painful for
Do
me
you
to
know
say that.
what? Do you know what? Brian's not playing the Rickenbacker so much anymore. He's
He
playing.
posts lots of pictures of it on
He
the.
does. He does. But that's his other gig. His big gig is he plays Sid Vicious in the Scottish Sex Pistols.
Yes, I've seen that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Apparently they're really good. I've not seen them yet. He keeps inviting me, so I'm keen to go to a gig. But the guy
Does
that
he? I hope he doesn't cut himself on stage.
he would, yeah, Brian's he's a pussy. He would just use marker pen.
He's too squeamish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blood capsules. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the story of them being here, and of course we did this record store thing. I don't remember there being any money from that, but there was a little bit of money from busking, not a ton.
Right.
But
Yeah, we
whatever,
busted in a
two of the
park.
kids. Yes, there were at least two busking scenes that I remember.
Yeah, and they were
And
just
there might have been more too. I don't remember.
I remember. Yeah, I remember a couple of buses, but because the whole part of the budget for the tour was we were going to pay for our food by busking, and we were going to pay for our gas and other expenses like van hire through selling T-shirts and things, and hopefully some tickets. But
Yeah.
but we didn't realize that you can't really busk in America. There's only certain places.
Yeah.
Whereas in Europe, you can just go to town square. And well, in those days, you go to town square, play guitar, and if you play the right song, you'll make like 100 francs a day. 100 marks a day, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, that's only £10, but 1,000 marks a day. But you can't really do that in America because you either people just ignore you and don't know what the hell you're doing, or you get asked to move on, or people say, right, we're going to call the cops. There's not really a tradition of it. So that really hampered us financially on that tour because we got that really wrong.
Yeah, once you're outside like New York or maybe Chicago in the subway or something,
Nobody does it.
really
Yeah.
right.
No. And they wouldn't, and like you said, they wouldn't even know what you're doing. They wouldn't even understand it. You may as well be juggling, steak knives or something because they're not going to relate to that at all.
Yeah, Mary, a strange thing happened to me today. I was coming home from work and there was a guy juggling steak knives. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Did he
So I
have
gave him $10.
What I saw, which was a band playing music on the street.
I gave him $10 and told them to go get those things sharpened. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I gave him 1,000 marks.
that's right. The little that I know was $4, but
so I was gonna drop one last thing, which was my sort of one of my favorite memories of that trip, which was I was working part-time as a delivery person at a pharmacy downtown. Yes, I got through college by delivering drugs.
Nice.
Legal ones. But one of the days that they were here, Justin got on the bus with me and rode downtown, and he came with me on my route to deliver drugs to old people around Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he remembers that, but there's like, I always thought once they started having hits here, I always wondered if those old people were still kicking
Yeah.
and like knew that like a
Yeah.
guy with a top 40 hit delivered their drugs once.
No, I do remember that. And I remember walking up a street and seeing a cloud cross the street. And I was like, Bobby, what's that? And you just, oh, yeah, sometimes you get these odd wisps of mist that just come off Lake Michigan. And
Oh yeah, because it was summer, right?
it just looked like a cloud crossing the road. I'd never seen anything like it before in my life.
At least he waited for the light to change.
Exactly.
Very polite clouds. Yes, we have very polite
Yes.
clouds.
So actually, the
All right,
last
well,
time you guys were here, you came with me to work again.
That's right.
That's right. You came with me when I had to open a safe.
You had to open a safe in the undercroft of a church.
I went from being a drug runner to a safe cracker.
That's right.
what a shady character you are, Bobby. Holy cow. It's take your bass player to work day whenever Justin's in Milwaukee. All
But
right,
hey,
we're
it
going
was
to
a
take a
Lutheran
break.
church, so it was so it's Reformation related.
Oh, they'll lead perfectly to the last segment. We're going to take a break. That's a good thing because as when Justin was doing the intro, he said, and then they had a hit record and things changed. So this takes us right up to hit record. So we'll take a break and we will be right back and talk about hit records. So stick around. Joey Song Podcast, Justin Currie and Bobby Tanzilo. All right, folks, we're at the first break here again. Thanks for sticking around. 3 more segments to go. In this next segment, Justin talks a little bit about the transition from perhaps the hipper, if you will, sound of the first Amitri record to what became more of the common sound that we all know and love as well. So, not that we didn't like the first record, but a lot of people discovered the Dells from Waking Hours on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, what goes into building that fan base, interesting stories about the recording thereof and what led to where we are. So again, for you Amitri fans, I hope you find this interesting. And please take a few minutes after you're done listening to the podcast to pop over to Joey Song, learn a little bit more about what we do, as well as follow us on all the socials. We are Joey Song, 2 S's in that. And you can find out a little bit more about our concerts and what we do to raise money to find treatments and cures for epilepsy. So stick around. We're going to talk a little bit about waking hours going forward. Welcome back to the Joey Song Podcast. My guests today are Justin Currie and Bobby Tanzilo, and we are doing something that, because I have to do alliteration, that I call Dells over the decades. It's really annoying, but that's just the way my small little brain works. So when we last left you guys a few minutes ago, before that little break, we had just gotten through talking about the tour that the Dells did around the first record, sleeping on floors and getting fans to set up gigs. And as Justin said, when we were kind of doing the setup, and then after that, the hit record came and life changed. So first, and Justin, you and I have spent thousands of hours together over the years, and I've never asked this question. The shift in the sonic shift from the first record to the second record, although now you mentioned the influence you got from America, that you no longer felt like you had to be cool and on the leading edge. Was there an impetus behind that sonic change, or did it just kind of happen?
No, I think we were quite ambitious to change, and America did open us up to being much more Catholic in our tastes, so and not being afraid to be influenced by things from the mainstream. And also what changed is we started writing separately, because prior to that, all 4 of us would get in a room and write all songs together. So everything was written by the 4 of us, which was a very labor-intensive process, although it led to some utterly unique things. But then Ian said to me, look, why don't I write some instrumental stuff on my own and you write some songs on your own? And that meant we were much more productive. And writing in that way, we just automatically started producing material that sounded mainstream. I mean, not kind of like adult rock, but it didn't sound like indie pop anymore. It sounded much more solid, and it sounded like it sounded like it would appeal to a much wider audience than our previous stuff had done. So I think that was partly ambition, because we'd failed so badly on that first album, and we were a bit of a laughing stock in Glasgow. People just laughed at us because we were so we were kind of behind the curve on the whole postcard thing because we were a bit young. The first album got pretty poor reviews, and we get dropped, and all the other cognoscenti in the Glasgow music scene were kind of sniggering up their sleeves at us. So I think we were not that we were hell bent on revenge, but we were quite motivated by the fact that we were looked down upon by the other bands in the scene in Glasgow in the mid '80s, and so yeah, we thought, look, these are mainstream songs. Let's go and get another major record deal, which eventually we did through the auspices of, again, Barbara Shores, who was an incredibly sort of creative and proactive manager. And we ended up signing to A&M Records, which was by far the best major label in the UK at the time. We went around all the other 10 labels, and they were sort of cross between, ghastly institutions run by tyrants and kind of and cocaine and abuser A&R men that would just were only in the music business to shag young girls. It was just absolutely horrible. And then we found this label A&M, which is still owned by 2 American musicians, and they kind of stuck by us until we had a hit, which was this acoustic song called Nothing Ever Happens, which is a hit right at the beginning of 1990. And that changed our lives in the sense that suddenly we weren't poor anymore. And suddenly we were quite famous in the UK because we'd been on Top of the Pops and millions of people had seen us on various TV shows. And because we'd been through, 8 years of, hardship's a bit of an exaggeration, but, 8 years of grind without ever really making much money and without ever being popular in any sense of the words, and being kind of despised, being kind of despised in our hometown. Suddenly, we were this sort of celebrated, intelligent pop band. So we felt really vindicated, and we were really chuffed to be successful in that sense. But because of what we've been through, we kind of took it all with a pinch of salt. We didn't take it too seriously, and as a result, I think we enjoyed ourselves a lot more than we ever had in the past. And also because we were sort of trying to be a rock band, we tried to do all that with our tongue in our cheek because we weren't really a rock band. We were like nice middle class boys, wearing leather trousers and sporting sideburns and jumping about in a silky shirt. That whole thing we did ironically, but at the same time just kind of loving it. And I think most of the audience got that this was just like, this is just a celebration of dumb rock, but there's a bit of artifice in the lyrics and the melodies and all that kind of thing.
Fascinating. The ironic part, obviously that must have been a conscious decision to go with that. But like you said, you think most people missed it, didn't realize and thought seriously?
No, I think, the sort of wider world might have missed it, but I think most people in our audience understood that, when we were, aping Rod Stewart and kicking footballs in the audience. And we were pretending to be a rock band, and it's really good fun, as everybody knows, to pretend to be a rock band. But because we'd been this very serious, earnest young indie band, it was very liberating pretending to be a rock band because you didn't have to be cool and arty.
Yeah.
You could just have a good time, and it meant the gigs were fun. They weren't overly serious. Nobody was stroking their chin, going, "Oh, that's an interesting rhyming couplet." The songs were good, and we wanted the songs to be good. We wanted the records to be good, but the whole live thing just became an absolute joy, And we were in our mid-20s, we were drinking lots of beer. We were going out, and dancing, and it was just an amazing time. Really, we were extremely lucky.
Yeah. Back in the days when you would actually get label support, right?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And that's why tickets were so cheap, because the major label system completely underwrote the live music industry.
Yeah. So, Bobby, how did you feel your little indie band from Glasgow all of a sudden having hits and bigger stages and everything. What was your take?
It was such a. I'm going to say that after a year after they were here, I went to London for the first time, and I stayed with Barbara Shores. Um, Slept on her floor, and much like when she was here, she was extremely stressed out at that point because um, to me, like it seemed like things. I mean, I know that they were back to working day jobs, which was not exciting for them to be doing, but she was working so hard because, and it seemed to me that they were moving because she was running. She's, she one day she'd say, "Don't wake me up in the morning because I have an important meeting at a record company." Like it's like okay, okay. So like they definitely seemed like things were going on. I even rode the bus up to see them, and they all seemed like in good spirits and stuff. So I thought things were good. Only later did I find out kind of that they'd gotten to this sort of low point. But they had done those demos in '86, which were a little bit. I mean, they're to me when I listen to them now, they're more transitional than I thought they were at the
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
Like at the time, I thought they were just a little bit more of what was going on the first record. But now I start to hear a little bit more of where it was going already. And then it morphs into a couple of the songs from Waking Hours that were on those early
Yep.
demos that came right after that. So it felt like musically I wasn't shocked when Waking Hours came out, like some people were because it'd been like a 3 or 4 year gap for them, right? So they
Yeah.
hadn't really heard anything in between. But what struck me the most was that the last time I'd seen them play live was here in Milwaukee. So that was 1986. And then the next time I saw them, they were playing a massive amphitheater outside Chicago, opening for Melissa Etheridge in like this massive rock and roll setting, right? I mean, the huge
Yeah. Yeah.
backstage.
Yeah.
There's a massage room. I'll leave that story there. And there was like free beer backstage. Like it was just this. And when you went out to watch from the wings, it was like seats as far back as you could see. It was just so that to me was such a jolting. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like for them, but for me as a fan to see that leap was sort of astonishing and rewarding, right? That they had put all this work in and
Yeah.
finally they were there. And of course, I know that tour didn't go the way, it might have looked like like it was going that day. But I mean, really, it was the first step to where they went afterward, which was
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah. Because I think we've all been through that, right? We find our band and, then they grow and we're excited about it, but then they're no longer our little different for you, obviously, Bobby, because you and Justin had already connected. It wasn't that from afar thing, but I think most people can relate to that of, my band's not the little band anymore. And I'm
Oh,
happy
I know.
about it,
And
but I'm not.
yeah, and I'm totally snobbish like that. If it wasn't for the fact that I knew them and liked them as people, I might have been like, fuck this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because I'm definitely that kind of, especially back then, I was definitely that kind of snooty, judgmental kind of like,
I mean, so you should be.
you know.
Why why would I go and see Oasis play Wembley when I saw them with 2,000 people in a tent in '94
Exactly.
and they were
Right.
absolutely brilliant. They're never going to be better than that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So then let's scooch forward to Twisted, if we can, because we've only
Yeah.
got an hour to do this. And now you had, well, Nothing Ever Happens in Waking Hours had some airplay in the U.S. And I was living in Chicago at the time, and thank God for XRT, who played the you-know-what out of you guys. It wasn't until perhaps the most un-Dells song of all the Dells songs, Roll to Me, was a big top 40 hit. And I think, you must have done 2 or 3 tours of the US off of that record,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we ended up doing tertiary markets, and I didn't know what tertiary meant. Well, Chicago's a primary market, yeah. And like maybe I don't know. God, that would not be rude to like Des Moines or something.
You came to Madison. You came to Madison, Wisconsin. That's got to be.
Well, that might be in a secondary market. I said, what's a tertiary market? Like that. That's the third level. So yeah, we did one really long tour of these funny wee places. Like we played places like Harrisburg and Allentown. It was kind of fascinating, actually. So yeah, we worked a lot and we had a lot of fun, and met a lot of people, and yeah, because that song was sort of rolling up the pop chart, and eventually got to number 10. But it didn't really make much difference to the gigs we were doing, because nobody knew. That song was played to death in pop radio, but it was never back announced or anything, so nobody knew who it was. So we didn't sell any albums off the back of it, and we didn't really sell many tickets off the back of it. And sometimes you'd meet people out in the street after you'd done a gig, and they would say, "Oh, yeah, I heard you guys tonight from the bar next door. I really like that cover of that song 'Roll to Me' you did," and they wouldn't believe you. They wouldn't believe you when you said that. No, actually, that's our song. They just wouldn't believe you at all. It's so weird.
I'd like to interject at this point that I'm a fan of Roll to Me, as unpopular as that seems to be.
I'm a fan of "Roll to Me" as well.
I think it's a great song. I'm not sure what's wrong with like a 2-minute long song that has a great guitar hook, a good melody.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's brilliant. And then you did that podcast where you deconstructed the recording and the writing of that song, which I thought was really fascinating and made me appreciate it even more.
I mean, we wouldn't, when we finished Twisted, because that was, Nirvana had happened by that point, and I was a huge Nirvana fan. In fact, Kurt Cobain died when we were making that, right in the middle of making that record. And I get drunk and went to my room and played In Utero 10 times in a row.
He didn't die because of you guys making the record, though.
No, you can't put that on me. He heard the demos, and did away with himself. So yeah, so Ian and I sequenced that album without Roll to Me on it, and then we realised we needed something kind of light, somewhere between side 1 and side 2 to break it up a bit. And I was like, well, why don't we just put Roll to Me on there, even though it doesn't really match anything else on the record? So we were happy enough to put it on the record, and we were over the moon that it was a hit, and it made us a lot of money. I mean, we went from being jobbing musicians to being like quite high earning songwriters based on that one record, which gave us a lot more freedom in terms of, how we operated and what we could do and all that sort of stuff. So that was a great thing. But it did mean that on the road we had a colossal workload, because we had to go to all these radio stations to thank them for playing the record and do acoustic performances and to keep the record in the charts. So we were doing, 3 or 4 radio stations a day, sometimes more, and interviews, before soundcheck, after soundcheck. Sometimes we did interviews after the gigs. And yeah, that was, it was fine at the time because we were relatively young, but it was kind of exhausting. Success is exhausting.
But hey, I just realized now that it's 2026, we've reached the 30th anniversary. It's a landmark anniversary of me harassing you about how I would have completely resequenced Twisted with
All right.
some of those B-sides in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure he
I
does.
probably did. Anybody that wants to make an argument that our B-sides should be on albums, I'm always very happy to hear.
Well, we can have that argument again.
All right, so now you heard a little bit about the process of going through stardom and big tours and all that other stuff, and Bobby wanting to resequence Twisted, which I don't think he's ever going to get a chance to do, but maybe he will. I don't know. Now we're going to talk a little bit about going solo and some of that stuff and what goes into making a solo record versus a Del Amitri record, and what makes a song solo worthy versus Del Amitri worthy as well. So stick around. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then after that, we got one more segment. We're going to talk about reforming the last record and what's going on moving forward with Del Amitri. But for right now, Justin goes solo. Okay, we are back. And now we are going to get to, we just ended with mega rock stardom, Roll to Me, hit records, and all of that other stuff. And then we went to, I think, Justin, you and I were together. You did some New York gigs, and you went to record with
Commissioner Gordon.
Major somebody or other, or
Captain something.
What was it? Commissioner Gordon. There it was. So you guys went to New York to record, and another kind of change in
Yeah.
direction, sound, whatever you want to call it, with
Yeah, well,
Can You Do Me
after
Good?
I mean,
You want to talk a
Twisted
little bit
was
about that,
kind of our biggest
please?
album internationally, and then we put a kind of power pop album called Summer the Circus Parade out quite quickly on the back of that, and that didn't have hits on it.
Yep.
So that was the sort of beginning of the kind of we'd gone up the hill and reached the plateau, and then plateaued for a bit, and then that was the beginning of us going back down again, which is pretty much the trajectory for most rock bands and pop bands. And then when we finished that, the record company put
Yeah.
out a greatest hits, which we didn't want them to do because we didn't think we'd had enough hits to be greatest. And then we got into kind of development hell. We like wrote and recorded or wrote and demoed 70, 80 songs that all got rejected by the record company. So we suddenly experienced all the kind of hell that we'd heard our friends talk about in the 1980s, with difficult A&R departments. And then finally, we were allowed to go to New York to sort of finish off a bunch of recordings with Commissioner Gordon, who mixed the album beautifully. I mean, but by this time we knew we were going to get dropped. So A&M, which had morphed into Mercury after being bought over several times by larger and larger corporations, we get dropped after that album came out in 2002, and then we decided to stop because we thought could be a bit depressing just going out and doing smaller and smaller venues. So yeah, we stopped for 13 years.
Yeah.
And then in that time, I made three solo albums in that time, which I really enjoyed doing because I was a bit bored. And Ian and I wrote a bunch of stuff as well, a bunch of electronic stuff, and then the phone started ringing again. It's like, oh, you guys might sell at Hammersmith Odeon in London, and it suddenly became financially viable because, as I was saying earlier on, in the 90s, the live industry was completely underwritten by the recording industry. And then the whole thing just flipped over once recorded music became free after the Napster wars or during the Napster wars. And so ticket prices started creeping up. And the ticket prices basically doubled every 4 or 5 years at the time when we weren't touring. So then we actually realized, we could actually make a living touring in the UK. Which was a bit of a revelation, because we were just about breaking even in the States in the 90s, because we did that really on the cheap, putting all our gear on the bus and that kind of stuff. But our UK tours had always lost money, and then all of a sudden you're charging 60 quid a ticket, whereas 10 years before you're charging £7.50 a ticket, £7.50 a ticket. So it was a whole new world. And we weren't sure whether we were going to hate it or not, but in fact we really enjoyed it. We thought, oh God, it's kind of, we realised we'd been really missing the camaraderie and just the joy of playing live for a living and not having to worry about the promotional cycle and all that stuff. So we've been on and off. We've been kind of going out on the road ever since.
What and so I'm on, so people that are listening, I'm on with two musicians, so this is the non-musician question. Tell me the process in your head of what makes a Del Amitri song and what makes a Justin
if the
Currie solo
song's
song.
got no, I think there is a bit of a difference. I mean, it's a different headspace.
Or
So
is
when I
there a
sat down-
difference?
when we decided to make another Del Amitri record in sort of 2018 or something, I took myself away and deliberately told myself I'm now writing Del Amitri songs. So if you're writing for a band, the songs tend to be, you'll talk about we in ways, like when you're writing a love song that can also be used to express the kind of we of the band. And there are things you wouldn't do when you're writing a solo record. So I always thought solo records need to be quite introspective and quite personal, whereas writing for a band, it needs to be a bit more like you're writing for the collective. So there were always things that I just put aside and thought, that's not right for Del Amitri. Maybe it's right for somebody else, or maybe I'll stick it on a B-side or something. But that being said, after we wrote and recorded Fatal Mistakes, where Ian and I sat down deliberately to write things that fulfilled that brief, I really don't want to do that again, because I don't feel I feel too old and tired to be, to kind of raise the energy levels to write a song like Roll to Me, or write a song like Even Nothing Ever Happens with lots of words and it's very quite up tempo and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So now we decided to kind of incorporate what we would have rejected as being too solo, to incorporate that into a sort of longer record. So we're trying to make a double records where we'll either separate those two things quite strictly or we'll mix them all up. We're not very sure yet. And actually, just the idea of making a double record is quite thrilling for us because we never thought about doing that before, and we've got the freedom to do it now for various reasons. And it's quite an interesting thing, a double record, because in the age of the vinyl revival, that's 20 songs, so that's 5 songs a side, and you've got to think about. It's much more interesting working out how that's going to work than just than a CD or a single vinyl record. So we're
the
quite into
pacing
that,
and everything, yeah.
we're finding it quite difficult, which is quite good, I think.
Yeah. I noticed, I still want to get back to the solo stuff, but since you mentioned it with Fatal Mistakes, I noticed those were a lot of shorter, 3.5 minutes kind of songs.
I think it's just the way the
I
songs
assume
come
that
out.
was
I mean, I'm
deliberate,
writing
or is
even
that just the way
shorter
the songs come
now,
out?
because I think, well, I've made my point. I don't need to write a medley, and I'm sort of trying to play around with like repetition and not having a very rigorous verse chorus middle 8 sort of structure. And I think it's just getting older and feeling and stopping yourself when you go, oh, I've written this before, let's try something else. So I'm trying to be much more direct now, I think. So some people might find these new songs are a bit simple, and some of them are maybe a bit bleak, but I really like them because I think they're a bit different. And I mean, this could be one of the most hated records we've ever made, which I'm quite looking forward to.
Is it going to be called Big Orange Balls?
I would love it to be called Big Orange Balls. I mean, at least when you call your album Big Orange Balls, you don't have to answer that question. So why do you call the album Big Orange Balls? Because you just say back to them, Big Orange Balls to you. Yeah.
It sure would make interviews a lot shorter. That's for sure.
Justin sent me a photo of when he was writing and the view out the window when he was writing, and he said, made some comment about if there was water out there, and he made some comment about how it might all be about the sea. And I said,
Right.
and in the foreground were a couple of big orange like buoys or something. And I said, at least it could be worse. It could all be about big orange balls.
There's something to be said for dumb.
If it's not, if it's not called that now, I'm going to be very disappointed.
I'm going to boycott it.
Put a marker. So, Bobby, I wanted to bring you in here, and what Justin was just telling us, he was talking about the difference between when they would tour the U.S. and they would tour the U.K. You and I went over for the '97 tour, I think, and so they would have been touring on Some Other Suckers. And we got a chance to experience Del Amitri life. We rode on the bus between a couple cities, and there was a game. What do we call it? The alphabet game? Is that what it was? Where you sit around and band names ABC and all of that? Yeah. And there was a little controversy, to use my British accent, around one of my answers.
And Mark and Nick Cope from the Candy Skins were in on the game as well.
Were with us as well. Yeah. So we went around. It was about the third round. And W came to me, and I said White Lion, to which one of us on this call called bullshit, and that couldn't possibly be a band. And Bobby, do you want to take it from there?
I'm just going to say I remain jealous of the fact that he could have gotten that far in life without having to have heard White Lion
from the name
and that song. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully I did back down because the rule was that if you could make a convincing argument that this band did exist, then you would get a pass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I sang the chorus or something. So of their
Well,
hit.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
and I vouched,
Yeah.
and I vouched for you.
Yeah.
You know, so I
Yeah.
think the fact that there were two people who'd heard of the band, it
Yeah.
counted.
Did
But yeah,
it
that
well.
was fun. And I was going to say that when when Change Everything came out and they toured for that, I was working nights, so I couldn't. I had sort of not seen them in person for a
Right.
while. So when they
And
came
also,
back for
we
Twisted
didn't
was
tour
when we
much
sort of
in the States
reconnected
on Change Everything.
Yeah.
We did
face to
one tour.
face, and yeah, I think
No.
you played the Metro or something
Yeah.
maybe, but I couldn't make it because I was working that night in Chicago. Um, so that was kind of nice though, because then we got because I know it was a grind for you guys to be here that much, but between Chicago and Milwaukee and Madison, and we saw you in Denver when we happened to play. And I have a funny story about that. I'll tell you in a minute. When we happened to play the same night, and then we came to
Yeah.
see you after, and that I remember it was the night that Princess Diana died because I remember standing on the stage as Buddy and
Yeah, it
Brian
was
were
very,
tearing down,
very
and the news
memorable.
sort of spreading at that moment after the show was over. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I liked that because we really got to spend a lot of time together. One of those Easters we had everybody
Excellent.
over to our house for Easter Day chili. I don't think you came,
What a
but
what a tradition.
it's a
Yeah.
great tradition. It's a great tradition.
Yeah.
But then, oh yeah, so I was going to say the funny story about Denver was on the way to Denver. We were trying to think of what people from Denver are called,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know this
and I
one.
came up with Denverines, which I liked because it's like Ben Vereen,
Ben Vereen.
But
Yes.
then we turned on the radio, and
Oh,
you guys are
excellent.
being
How
interviewed on the
weird.
radio, and you guys on the radio then had the same exact conversation. It must be,
And what
which
are
made
they
me think that
called?
it must be something that everybody who's not from Denver talks about when they're on their way to
I would
Denver.
have said Denveronians.
I don't know.
I would have
Denverines, I
gone.
think. Denveronians? Denverites?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Denverites.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you said Denveronians. Yeah. I'm sticking to
Yeah.
Denverines.
Which sounds like it sounds like an Italian pasta dish. I had some Denveronian the
Yes.
other night, and
Yes.
it was
Oh,
quite
but
tasty.
back to some other suckers parade. That though is sort of like in between somewhere in that
Yeah.
Twisted era was when we met Mike in Madison because
Yes.
he had somehow heard that there were these mysterious
No,
Delamitri fans
I'll tell
in
you
the
that
area.
story. So
All right, you tell the story.
I had become friends with Ash. I don't remember how I had done that, but I had become friends with Ash. And at the beginning of the Twisted stuff, and he and I stayed in contact. And that's when I was doing a lot of business in London when I was with IBM. And I would always hook up with him and his partner at the time, Carolyn,
Excellent.
and they would help me drink my way through jet lag the first night, that's what a true friend is, that will drink you through
Yes.
jet lag. And so then the tour had brought you guys through Madison, and you and I started talking,
Right.
Justin. We bonded over Beatles Christmas flexi discs, and you had said you as
Yeah.
one does, and you had said something to me about your friends in Milwaukee, and it just so happened that within a few weeks of that, the Yell Leaders came through, and I think you were opening for Kid Johnny Lang, if I remember correctly, Bobby,
We were, yeah.
at the East End Club here in Madison. And the one thing that will seal a friendship better than anything is Kathy got along with Nori, and Bobby and I were neutral on each other. But as long as the two ladies liked each other, then we were good to go. So
Right. And then they
that was
let us
that.
leave together, which was nice. So
They
we could
did,
go.
and still talk to each other. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we would go to visit you, Justin,
Yep.
sometimes. And then the one time we
Yep.
came for that tour, which was super fun.
Yeah,
And
that was great.
that was one of the, whenever somebody asks me to tell them a story of some way I messed up in life that nobody would believe, it's that you
Right.
guys invited us to drink at the Houses of
Oh.
Parliament pub. And we thought, well, first of all, we were staying with our friend Donna, who was nice enough to let us stay at her house and stuff.
Yep.
So we demurred. We said no, we're going to stay with Donna because we're going to hang out with Donna because she's letting us
Yep.
stay. We don't want to just be rude and just show up and say
Yeah.
we're leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, we thought, a pub's a pub, right? What's the difference that this one is called the Houses of Parliament, But we didn't realize it was actually the pub in the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah.
In which case,
He
of
didn't
course,
tell
we
me
had
about that till afterwards, so that was good. I'm glad that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
So
There
you
was
guys
a
apparently had
guy called Jeff
an
Hoon,
MP or something
who
who's a
was
fan
an
and
MP that
invited you.
used to
What
come
is that
along and
story?
ask to meet us after shows in Leeds in the north of England, in Yorkshire. And we assumed he was a Tory MP, which is like the kind of equivalent of Republicans, I guess. So we refused to let him in, and then we found out one night he was a Labour MP, so and that was when Labour had been out of office for like 18 years. So we got to know him. His wife was a big fan, actually. So then when Labour got into office in '97, he phoned us up and said that I'll give you a guided tour, and it was completely fascinating. So we went around the House of Commons, and there was a debate going on. And then we sort of snuck into the House of Lords when the public weren't allowed in. That was really interesting. And then he took us out onto this big bar which overlooks the Thames. And it was kind of exciting because it was like the opposition party had just got power after 18 years, and there was an incredible buzz around the place. And we met some sort of really kind of weirdly powerful people, which is quite odd. And then Jeff Hoon became the defence secretary. So he would come to gigs and tell us all these mad stories. But then, during the Iraq War, he went on television and basically threatened to use nuclear weapons against the Iraqi regime. So ever since then, we've just avoided him because he comes to gigs and tries to be like, oh, fuck off. You went on television and threatened to use nuclear fucking weapons. So yeah, that friendship didn't last.
But
He'd
about that day, that visit to the House of
Actually, I mean,
Commons, what you're saying is
you
a
sort of
really
didn't
fascinating.
actually, because you would need to have known, because a lot of these MPs were quite famous faces, so it was kind of like you felt like you were in the seat of power. It was quite thrilling, if that doesn't sound too crawly, too cringy, and it was a very exciting time. Like a year later, the cynicism would have set in, and we'd have hated being there. But it was a great time to be in kind of in the inside of the Palace of Westminster. Yeah, you would have enjoyed it, actually.
Short
Can I
version,
just say
it
that
remains one of
I
my
looked it up.
regrets.
The demonym of Denver is Denverite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Denverine.
Oh,
That
it
sounds
is.
like not a bad band. The
I'm sticking with
Denverines.
Denverine. I'm sorry.
The Denver.
Yeah, just the cleverness of the pun, Bobby. Yeah.
Denveronian, it's also good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to finish up with, we will talk about just where Justin left us off in the story, the Reformation, as those of us in the cult of Del Amitri call it. Everybody getting back together and touring, and we'll talk about that. And I know we're out of chronological order, but I still want to ask about the marble in the pocket too. I forgot to ask about that when we were talking about touring. So we will be back after this with Justin Currie and Bobby Tanzilo. It is the Joey Song Podcast. All right, we're now going to go into that last segment. We jokingly called this the Reformation. It's really the reforming of Del Amitri for tours starting about 10 years ago. 2014, I think, was the first tour after a long hiatus of the band. They did that A to Z tour, and we talk a little bit about that and reimagining some of those songs from the first record, as well as including some B-sides in the live set. Very interesting conversation, and I think all you Del Amitri fans will enjoy the rest of this. So again, thanks for listening. It's the Joey Song Podcast, joeysong.org, and at Joey Song on all the socials. So stick around, folks. The last segment's coming up. All right, folks, we are back for the last segment of our podcast with Justin and Bobby, and we are going to follow up with where we ended the last time, which is Justin and Ian decided that they were missing getting together. There was the A to Z tour, I recall. I saw a couple shows on that one and a few others, and have been a going entity since then, despite COVID. And we'll talk about getting the last record done under the wire as well. So as you said, Justin, you and Ian realized that you kind of missed. You had gotten some indication that touring could actually be profitable in the UK. And once you got out on the road, you realized, hey, this doesn't suck as much as we remembered it sucking. Yeah.
Well, we always loved touring, but coming back to it 13 years older, we just weren't sure how much we would enjoy it. We weren't sure whether we'd be any good at it, to be quite frank. We thought we might be awful. And we rehearsed really hard for that tour because we were paranoid about kind of letting people down. But then we went out and did the first couple of gigs, and we're like, actually, we're pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of sort of shame in a way we didn't keep going, but there wasn't a market for us. You know, there wasn't a market for
Right.
Del Amitri gigs, and then suddenly there was because of as I was saying, the way the whole businessman had changed. But no, I mean, we loved it as much as we used to love it, but we loved it even more because it was making everybody money. You know, it was like proper money.
Yeah. And on that tour, you tried to do, you brought back songs from the first record as well, and did B-sides and that type of stuff. The idea being Del Amitri from start to finish. Was that, that had to feel, I don't know, good or fun, I don't know what the right word is, to play stuff that you hadn't normally been in the Del Amitri rotation, too, right? I think you did Hammering Heart, right?
Yeah, and we had, we weren't promoting a records and a new single or anything, so you had complete freedom to, as long as you played the sort of fan favourites, we had complete freedom to do what we wanted to do, and then, I mean, I guess the big thing was, do we do another record? And I was very against that. And then Ian kind of talked me into it a few years later. Oh, because I put that was 2014. I put another solo record out after that. So I guess I still had the desire in me to make solo records, which I kind of lost after we made Fatal Mistakes. I thought, well, I don't know, I'll ever make another solo record again.
Yeah. And the process of getting everybody back together and recording, did it feel like falling off a horse kind of thing and get right back on it? Or was there some, I don't even want to know, muscles you hadn't used in a while?
No, it felt pretty natural. It was all quite reasonably easy to write. It took a few years to write it. And we recorded it old style. We rehearsed it quite thoroughly. And then we recorded it in 3 weeks, just banging it all out live and doing, like, sometimes we were doing 40 takes and then chopping takes together. And that was really the first time we made a record in a completely traditional way. And it's the first time since, well, actually the first time ever that we made a record where there were no other players on it. It was just the 5 members of the band and no other hired hands. Even on the first Del Amitri record, there was an organ player that we hired and a percussion player that we hired. So yeah, there was something, we were quite proud of that, actually.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that record, that was the most fun we'd ever had in the studio, making that record.
Well, and there had to be no pressure other than self-imposed pressure, probably,
Exactly.
too, right?
Yeah, there really wasn't any pressure because we didn't have a record deal. We just thought, well, if we don't think this is good enough, we don't release it, or we release bits of it and not the rest of it. And the only thing that was tough was mixing, because as you say, we started in sort of beginning of March, and lockdown started at the day after we were due to finish. So we literally did the last monitor mix at midnight. I had all the gear packed up, and then drove home on Sunday, and lockdown started on the Monday. So it was a very weird atmosphere to finish a record in. Very strange.
Can't
Can I
imagine.
ask a question?
Yes.
You may. Yes, the fellow over there in Milwaukee. I see you have your hand up.
I know we talked about this earlier, but I was curious about, I mean, it seems to me that Fatal Mistakes sort of blurred the line between what's a Del Amitri song and what's a solo song.
A bit.
But also it's hard to know because there hadn't been a Del Amitri song since 2001.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't really know what I mean, you guys were obviously 20 years older, right? So I mean, who knows? And Ian had gotten his degree, and I mean, there had been all these changes, and there were some different people involved, so the music would have been different anyway. But this is a long-winded way of asking: did some of the stuff that ended up on the sort of B-sides and outtakes record, did some of that stuff get nixed off of Fatal Mistakes because it seemed too solo-y? I'm thinking of like Second Staircase, maybe, or something. Like songs like that. This is just the geek in me, like asking.
Yeah, I mean, no,
it's a good one.
we kind of allowed us. I mean, I was slightly worried about putting Second Staircase and Otherwise on the same record, because I thought they were both very sort of solo record style.
Yeah.
But Ian was happy with it. I mean, Ian ended up sequencing that record because I just couldn't sequence it. So yeah, he was happy with that. I mean, the songs on this B-side records were done during lockdown, and they're just songs I didn't think were quite good enough to be on the main album.
Yeah.
And there were only, I think there were only two, yeah, there were only two songs that we recorded in the album sessions that didn't make the album. I mean, normally there'd be like 5 or 6, but
Yeah.
because we put so many songs on the bloody record to make the sequence work, there were only 2 left over. So, but the rest were all just things that I had on file, and I just sent them out to everybody in their isolated homes during lockdown, and they put parts on it, and then Ian mixed it all.
So interestingly, it was sort of released as a kind of a sort of companion to Fatal Mistake.
Yeah.
But in a way, it really was its own record. You could
Yes, in
argue.
a way it was. Although if it had been a standalone record, there'd be 3 or 4 songs we would not have put on it because they just weren't good enough. They're very much B-sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
At the end of the lightning round,
there are only
devastating.
sort of 3 songs on there that I would consider putting on a standalone record.
Yeah, yeah. All right. That was my geek question for the day.
Yeah, I hope I answered it, Bob.
You can and you're allowed to follow up then, Bobby, if you want to.
Oh, all right. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about. So I think I saw shows on all the tours. I was at 2014, and then the last couple of years, and I wanted, and this may be one where you don't want to answer because you don't want to say anything about your audience, but it feels the audience has grayed quite along with all of us. Part of it, I saw the crowd. I saw one
Speak
show
for
in
yourself.
Cleveland. Yeah, well, yeah. The show in Cleveland was one I particularly noticed. They're all kind of sit-down show, or a lot of them are sit-down shows because most of us can't stand for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you've had people that have literally followed you for these 35, 40 plus years too. That's got to feel good.
It's just extraordinary, and it's really beautiful, and we were so grateful that those people were still there after the 13-year hiatus, and are still turning up. Are still turning up now, and still they look like they're enjoying themselves. I mean,
singing
the funny thing
singing
about
every word, you know.
yeah. It's just beautiful. The funny thing about the standing thing is that we did a UK tour not last year but the year before in the winter, and all the venues were like standing venues, and they sold really quickly. So there's obviously a section of the audience that would rather have seats, but there's still a section of the audience who are all well into their 50s, and some of them are like us are well into the 60s, who want to stand. You know, I mean, I like standing at gigs, although I do like I do like to sit down as well. So it's kind of funny because you think, well, God, at what point do we have to just always do seated theatres? You know?
Yeah. I just know that for the Joey song stuff, which is much longer than Adele's show, I could probably sell the few seats that we have at the venue for 4 figures, and most of us, you know, baby boomers would grab onto those. So
right, yeah.
I'm the same as you. I don't mind standing, or at least it seems like a good idea until about an hour into the set, and then I'm looking around for a pole to lean on. So
yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of a weird thing. I suppose it depends how, you know, it depends how if the relationship is working between the audience and the band, you don't really mind standing. But if you're a bit bored, or if there's somebody really tall standing in front of you or something, then
always.
Yeah, always. And you kind of get a bit tired. But I was really impressed that doing that standing tour, that the audience were. I mean, look, bands' audiences are usually about 4 or 5 years younger than them, so they've got the edge on us, the audience. So when we can't stand anymore, then we'll definitely bring in the seats and the sofas.
Well, I've seen Sir Paul on his last few tours, and that man does 3 hours and doesn't leave the stage. So the bar is set.
Yeah,
you know,
that's crazy.
It's crazy,
that's
and
crazy.
I just hate people like that. They just put
Yeah,
everybody else to shame. It's so
Then
annoying.
then don't go see Springsteen either. So yeah, that'll
Well,
kill you
actually,
as well.
I walked out of a Springsteen gig at Hampden Park. Hampden Park's one of the worst sounding stadiums for music in the world, and the wind's always blowing. You can never hear anything. So
Oh
I went
yeah.
to see. I'd never seen Springsteen before, so we watched like an hour and a half, and occasionally you could hear the snare drum, but very rarely. Occasionally you could hear his voice, and then occasionally you could hear a bit of guitar, but the rest of it was just nonsense, you know. And
Yeah.
I was like, so I said to my friend, "Look, are we gonna watch 4 hours of this? Because we can't actually hear it because it sounds so bad. It wasn't their fault. It was just the
Yeah.
stadium and the wind whipping around." So then we walked out of the stadium and we walked up a hill, and we were about half a mile away from the stadium, and we were like, "That sounds
And then
amazing."
you could hear it.
So we just stood there for we sat in a car and we sat and listened to like another half an hour. And we're like, that sounds absolutely brilliant.
that's
man.
that's amazing. And
But
you could
really,
sit
there's
through
no
all of it.
excuse. Anybody that plays more than 2 hours should just
Yeah.
be shot. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to join you in the old man yelling at clouds scenario that we've got going here, but I agree with you on that. So, all right,
Yeah,
Bobby, this is our last chance to ask those questions for all the other Del Amitri fans that are listening. Do you got anything else you want to talk about?
Oh God, I have a question, but it's not something all the other Delmetri fans would ask about. Although some of them would. We were talking about age, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you were talking about how long we've known each other, and I
Yep.
have come to realize that at 40 years now, in person, and probably 41 years via letters,
Yeah.
Yep.
these guys are some of my oldest friends. I can count maybe
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
one or two hands, like people I've known longer than that.
Yeah, it's weird,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, and it occurred to me while you were talking that 30 years ago you guys played Summerfest, and it was
Yeah.
a couple of days after my 30th birthday, and you gave me a book, and in it, it's in the other room, so I don't have it memorized what it says, but it says something about how 30 is not so bad. This July I will turn 60, so I'm going to ask you, how bad is it?
Do you know what? 60 is great. Are you having a party?
I don't know. Kathy's been talking about it, but I don't know.
You've got to have a party. You've definitely
All
got
right.
to celebrate it. But I turned 61 in December, and I really don't like that at all.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm at the moment I'm just still saying I'm in my 60s because 61 is just not good. So and
So
also
60 good, 61 not good.
no, 61's not good because then things are just really going downhill, aren't they? 61, but
Yeah.
it's definitely worth celebrating 60 because
Yeah.
you know, I guess when we were all little boys and we imagined somebody who was 60, we would think, well, they're pretty near death and they probably don't do very much, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so you're quite grateful to get to 60 and go, well, I'm still living a pretty active and satisfying and rewarding life. And I really didn't expect that at all when I was a kid because 60-year-olds were really old when we were kids.
Yeah. When you guys came to Milwaukee, I was 20. I had just turned 20.
Yeah.
And my dad was about to turn 46.
Wow. Wow. Oh
Can you
God, that's so
imagine that?
weird.
Well, as
Can you
the
imagine that?
person on this call that's turning 65 this summer, I'll just slowly back away from the microphone and not say anything else on
Right.
all that. On
So
that
that was the
depressing,
life advice I wanted.
yeah, thanks, Bobby, for ending the note on at least a downer for me. I really
Well,
appreciate that. So, all right, well,
I aim to
guys,
please, Mike.
this has been great. Yeah, as I said when we set all this up, I said, and even if the recording goes south, it's nice to catch up for an hour. And I have a feeling we could do another hour that has nothing to do with Del Amitri, but talks music, because that's the other thing I enjoy with both of you guys is talking music. So maybe we'll do a part 2, and we'll do it as a recap after the Del Amitri U.S. tour is done.
Yeah,
So
only if I can have beer.
believe me, it would be encouraged. not only required. So
I
we will
think we
see
have
you,
to.
Justin. Oh, go ahead,
We
Bobby.
have to. We have to do another podcast after the double album comes out and compare it to such double album masterpieces as Tales from Topographic Oceans and
Hey, hang on, that's a triple album.
is it?
Yeah, and I'm ashamed to admit that I know that, but yeah, Tales from
Oh,
Topographic Oceans is a triple album. Actually, I
well,
might be wrong. Maybe it's
well,
not.
then it sounds to me like you guys better get your acting gear and
Yeah.
A triple album, that'd be great. Yeah, we made a
Look
triple
forward.
album, and there's only 4 songs on it.
Yeah. I look forward to the Andy Alston double keyboard solo
Yeah,
halfway through one of the songs too.
yes.
That
I'll
would
buy
be
him a
something.
cape.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wakeman. Absolutely. All right,
All
guys,
right, undermine your
we're
outro.
gonna yeah. Well, I'm gonna try it one more time. See, the good thing I can do this outro without you guys after we're done. I'll just pretend that you were. I'll edit in some laughing. So it's been a pleasure, Justin Currie.
Yeah.
You're. I know you don't take compliments well, but your music has been the soundtrack of my life, and a lot of major things happened around that, and all of them good. So I thank you for the music, and I thank you for your friendship. You have been a gracious
Thanks, Mike,
host.
and for
Every
yours
time life has
too.
brought me through Glasgow, I do appreciate that. And Bobby, I can't imagine my music life the last 30 plus years without you to bounce ideas off of and to learn from. And every time we get together, we don't see each other as often as we should, but as we commented earlier in the week when we talked, it takes us about 3 minutes to get right back into the puns and the terrible dad jokes. And I am grateful
Yeah.
for you and for Kathy's friendship with Nori. So I thank you as well.
Love both you guys, man.
Yep, it's been great. All right, everybody. Thanks
See
for
you
listening to
soon.
the Joey Song Podcast. If you have not, are listening to this only because you're a big Amitri fan and don't know, joeysong.org for the website to learn more about what we do, and on all the socials, Joey Song on Instagram and Facebook, and 10 other things that started yesterday that I don't know about. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll talk to you real soon.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of the podcast. A quick reminder, if you can give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast provider and write a short review, it will really help us out. If you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel over there, that's another big help. These simple acts make it easier for others to find us. And of course, head over to joeysong.org to join our community and stay up to date on all the news. Thanks, and we'll talk again real soon.
Learn more about Joey Song by visiting joeysong.org. The theme music was composed by Sam Gomoll, and Joey Song is a federally registered 501c3 charity. Thanks for listening.